Welcome to POOIA's monthly lecture series. POOIA stands for Professional Organization of Iranian Americans in Atlanta. Tonight, we have the distinct honor of having Dr. Rama Rao Gogineni as our distinguished speaker. I'm truly indebted to Dr. Camilla Alavi for having made this exceptional opportunity possible for us. POOIA is an affiliate of Persian Cultural Center or Kanun Farhangi Iranian Atlanta, which is a non-political, non-religious, and an independent organization that operates only on the donations and support of our benevolent Iranians. Please give your donations and support of our benevolent Iranians. Please give your donations to POOIA.com to support our young Iranian students who are studying mostly at the PhD level in different fields. Now, let me just tell you a few words about the purposes of POOIA. The purposes of POOIA have been to create an organization, number one, to create a sense of synergy within population of Iranian American professionals and channel to achieve more than the sum of our individual contributions. Number two, to enhance professional success. Number three, to support and expand the teaching of Persian at Georgia Tech, which is a necessity for our generation 1.5 and 2 Iranian students. Number four, to fight against propagation of misinformation about Iranians, which has resulted in glory and esteem for us Iranians these days. Number five, to become an anchor of support while creating a channel for Iranian American professionals to share their accomplishments, experiences, etc. Number six, to provide other forms of advice, such as internship, scholarships, career counseling, etc., to support our young professionals. Each year, POOIA gives a monetary scholarship to the students of different backgrounds studying at the different universities in Georgia. Now it is my distinct pleasure to briefly introduce our eminent scholar, Professor Dr. Rama Rao Gogineni. But before I introduce him, once again, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude and appreciation to our great scholar, Dr. Camilla Alavi, who worked hard to arrange this program for Kanun tonight. Dr. Rama Rao, MBBS, which is a Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery, and International Undergraduate Medical degree. It is equal to the Doctor of Medicine, MD, or the Doctor of Osteopathic Medicine, DO. He is also an MD from the Graduate School of Kakatiya Medical School after being a house surgeon and Osmania General Hospital. Dr. Gogineni finished a psychiatry residency at the University of Pennsylvania, fellowship at the Medical College of Pennsylvania. He has training in family therapy and psychoanalysis. Dr. Gogineni is currently a professor of psychiatry and the head of child and adolescent psychiatry at Cooper Medical School of Rowan University in New Jersey. He's an active contributing member of the US and World Psychiatric Organizations. He has many publications and books. Since Dr. Camilla Alavi has worked with Dr. Gogineni for around 30 years, although she's not 30 years herself, and she's the reason we have this wonderful opportunity to have Professor Gogineni as a distinguished speaker tonight. I ask her to explain more about their academic and psychoanalytic works together. On behalf of Kanun and Cultural Committee and POOIA, I thank Dr. Alavi and Dr. Gogineni for actually making this session possible tonight. Dr. Alavi, can you please start?
You just said the tip of the iceberg. Dr. Gogineni has done so much more. Not only, education-wise, but he's also a leader. He has had leadership roles in American Psychiatric Association, American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. He has been regional president several times of Regional Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. He's very involved with the international social psychiatry, which I hope he can explain for us in a couple of sentences what it is, social. But beyond these things, I always like to talk about who I invite in a different department, a person as a human being, how these people do for their society. Dr. Gogineni also does school consultations, community outreach. He's an organizer. He has organized a lot of mental health programs and groups. He's a promoter. So he helps a lot of other people to go up. And he does research. He has written books. But he also does free treatments and consultations. He is a real healer, caring about people around very much. He's humble. And he also does a lot of mentorship. To believe it or not, over 30 years ago, when I got involved with these outreach programs for the psychological impact of immigration on immigrants, and I was involved with the group Dr. Fallon and few other people, Dr. Salman Akhtar. After a while, Dr. Gogineni told me, you go to conferences more than we go, you read more than we do, why don't you go and get training and become a mental health professional? And he told me there is a place called Family Institute of Philadelphia. So when I saw him a few days later, he wanted to explain more. And I said, I'm already enrolled. And here I have been blessed. It's always good to find good mentors and stick to them. He has no way out from this mentorship. But there's one thing that I want to add. One more thing is, behind every successful person, there is a giving spouse. And Dr. Fallon has been a real gem. I have observed her to be so supportive. Their house is open to us all the time, and she's a great hostess. So I'm really feeling blessed to get to know these people, and I'm going to be there forever. Dr. Fallon, I'm sorry. Dr. Gogineni, I'm sorry. I'm going to be here. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I also thank Dr. Fallon, Dr. Gogineni's wife, to be present here. Dr. Fallon herself is a psychologist. Dr. Gogineni, thank you so much. We are all ears.
Yeah. I have to bring my PowerPoint somewhere, right? How do I bring it up?
While you are bringing your PowerPoint on, I'd like to thank Mr. Navid Nasajpur to be here, one of our young people, one of our
Thank you so much.
So one of your scholars. Why aren't you showing your beautiful face?
Okay, thank you.
Hi, how are you? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you all. One thing that's common with all of us, what you are calling a giving doing. I'm a big on explaining to myself and realizing to myself and realizing, helping people realize Maslow's hierarchy of needs called self-actualization. When you are a healthcare professional or many of the immigrants and many of the physicians and many of the older people, giving is a necessity. It's not a choice. We have a need to give. The second thing I learned about giving from an evolutionary perspective, you don't give to person you got from. You give to future, other people, children, older, that people who are need you more than who gave you. It's called the upward mobility of the gratitude or giving. I think it's important for us to understand the concept so that people who got from us, they don't have to give back to us. That's not betrayal of gratitude. They give it to other people. I think that's common with all the whatever 40 people, how many are 41 people that are here today. So we're self-actualizing to ourselves and others. So that's important to recognize that part, though. That's good. All right. I don't think you're applying for continuing medical education, but if you are, I don't have anything to declare. I like this flyer so much. I wanted to look at myself here one more time by thanking Dr. Hadari and Dr. Alavi. I want to say a little bit about this, though. Even though what I put, you're going to learn about hopeful. There are different parts to this presentation. I don't know. When I agreed to speak for this topic, I wasn't exactly sure what I had thought I would talk more about young adults or Iranians, but I realized that doesn't. It's hard to do, and that may not be enough to present during this presentation. So I have a little bit about immigration, psychology of immigration overall, something about Iranians, Iranian culture, Iranians all from Iran, and then Iranian families, and then more about Iranian young adults, youth. I have all those things here. So I hope that's okay. So please, the gentleman that is going to help me, feel free to just interject your 2 cents here to make it better, okay? I'm sure you know this one. When I was reading it, I thought maybe you want to hear from me, even if you read it. U.S. immigration first started in 1607. The main points here are until 1812, most of the immigration was by West Europeans. Then 1812, then Southern and Eastern Europeans entered the picture, as well as Japanese. And then after 50s, after the Korean War, Koreans came to this country. And we know when Lyndon Johnson passed the law about the African Americans, he also signed an immigration bill. Until 1967, non-West Europeans coming to this country is not legal. You have to make an exception, even Catholics. That's when Johnson signed the bill in 67, Immigration Act. That's when the gates opened to Europeans, Asians, and all of us. It's important to recognize that fact and hopefully thank Johnson wherever he is now. And of course, now since 80s, the Hispanic and Asian immigration increased in numbers. I want to say, I guess you want to say, you guys know about this, but I will say a little bit. I'm a big fan of King Cyrus and his son Darius and their kingdom, and how it's considered actually even now the greatest empire in the world, and all in the history of mankind. Not only they were great warriors, they were great givers. They were great accepting, even though they went all the way to Egypt and Asia, Central Asia. They were wonderful, both Cyrus and Darius. I guess you know that part. I want to say it. And then, of course, we know about 3,000 years of a great history of Iran and Persians. There are two things that are missing here. I will say a little bit. Zoroastra, about 500 BC, along with Buddha, promoted, established Zoroastrian religion. And then, of course, Islam came to Iran about 800 AD. You can know those two things, but I want to say it. And then, of course, demise of the Shah's. Actually, when I came to US in 1975, University of Pennsylvania used to have 2 psychiatrists sponsored by Shah and his regime. They would come and do residency here. Their salaries were paid by Shah. So one of the unique aspects of the University of Pennsylvania, Dr. I'm blocking his name, my residency director. He was an anthropologist and a psychiatrist and psychoanalyst. He was friends with Shah, so he negotiated Dr. Edward Folks. He was one of my trainees and trainers and supervisors. He brought the medics connection, and until then, until when the Shah was overthrown by the Islamization of the Iran, that things changed between America and Iran. That's the beginning of the current era. The hostage crisis, 9/11, and George Bush naming Iran as the. I think that the last 4, 5, or 6 incidents put a big dent in Iranians' role, role, identity in America. I guess you already know this one, but I think we need to highlight all these things, 5 or 6 or 7 of those incidents since Shah's rule was overthrown, affected all Iranians. You know, I tell Iranian friends and my Indian friends, when I say I'm Indian, with the pride, nobody will question it. I feel proud. They accept me as I am, but you guys can't say it publicly. I'm not even sure that you can say it privately. I don't know that part. I didn't talk to anybody about this. I think you do. Listening to Kambiz and Camellia, I can see they're proud to be Iranians, but I don't know how many of them tell publicly. And how many of you tell even publicly to each other outside the family setting? I think that's a major issue in Iranian culture, Iranian second generation, third generation, as well as immigrants. That is not able to feel proud of who you are, who you were, who you will be. It's a major issue in Iranian culture and Iranian identity as both all 3 generations, first, second, and third generations. This a little bit more about Iranian Americans. I'm sorry I'm repeating your stuff that you already know, but I learned all these things preparing for these lectures. For nearly 2 centuries, since the first Iranian immigrated to the United States, the history of Iranian Americans has been evolving. It is a story of individuals and families putting down roots in an unknown land, successfully melding their ancient heritage with the culture of their new home. Iranian American assimilation has faced unique challenges, primarily the result of ongoing tensions between the United States and Iran. pre- and post-revolutionary political relationships between governments and two countries. Yet, with the perseverance and hard work, the Iranian American community has effectively addressed these issues and continues to prosper and grow. There are about 1.5 million Iranians in this country now. This is a little bit more about Iranian immigration. Again, I'm sorry if I'm repeating what you already know. The first known Iranian American, Mirza Muhammad Ali, better known as Haji Saya, the traveler born around 1836 in Mahalat at the age of 23, journeyed around the world for 18 years and arrived in New York around 1867. Only 130 Iranians are known to have immigrated between 1842 and 1903. 1925 to 1950, nearly 2,000 Iranians were admitted to the United States. The first wave, 50 to 79, industrialization, economic expansion, that's funny, studying abroad, increased travel to 25,960 immigrants, and 6040 were naturalized. The second wave was between 79 and 2001. New immigrants, middle and upper class families, most of them were political refugees and exiles, religion minorities following the outbreak of Iran-Iraq war in September of 1980, and exodus of young men eligible for military service and middle-class professionals. The Immigration Reform and Control Act passed in 1986 allowed thousands of Iranians who had been living illegally in the country and become legal permanent. It should be 1968 though, not 1986. The third wave was the 2001 to present. Is there the gentleman, Naveen, what's his name?
Yeah, Nima.
Nima, you want to say so far about what I said, Nima?
Nima, where are you? آقای دکتر مدرسی, did you unmute him? Nima Azad.
Okay. Well, maybe when he comes, I'll ask him.
No, he's there.
He's there? Okay.
But he has to be unmuted. Dr. Madarisi, can you unmute?
I'm unmuted.
Okay, he's there.
Good.
He's there.
You want to say a little bit anything about what I said so far about the Iranian history and Iranian American history?
No, I mean, so far, I guess the only comment that maybe I can have, honestly, that's my personal experience, but around me and myself, and from what I saw, we are, as an immigrant, as an Iranian immigrant, I haven't seen anyone, honestly, to be embarrassed, like saying that, and no one saying that they are Iranian. I mean, we are kind of also like proud saying that, we are Iranian.
Yeah, exactly.
Because maybe the main reason is we are kind of, we kind of differentiate ourselves from Iranian government. And then that's something that I guess nowadays, because all the news and social medias, other American people, also like other, people who live in, US from other cultures, other countries, they also know what's happening in Iran. So, and then they know what Iranian people think and what, Iranian governments, kind of, behave. So I don't want to get too much in political, issues or other stuff, but maybe I won't say it, but maybe second generation or third generation, they feel more American than Iranian because they don't know that much about Iranian culture. Maybe that's the reason that, they don't say that they are like, they don't feel attached to Iranian culture. And maybe that's the reason that they don't say that they're Iranian. Maybe that's the only comment that I have so far, but when we get to other stuff, I guess I can help more about the challenges when I came to US.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Dr. Gogineni, am I allowed to say a word?
Please,
here?
please, yeah, yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Dr. Gogineni, I have been here in high school. I have been here for my master's and for my PhD, postdoctoral. I have always been proud of being Iranian. I have always, mentioned that I am an Iranian because I am proud of being Iranian. I think every Iranian should be proud of who he or she is. I don't know where you got this idea, but we Iranians are proud to be who we are,
No,
no
I
matter
didn't say you're
what.
not, that you don't announce it publicly. That's what
We do. I do announce it.
Okay.
And those people who are sitting here, Kanun Farhangi Iranian Atlanta or POOIA, I'm sure they're all proud of being who they are.
Okay, of course.
Thank you.
You should be. You have every reason to be.
Thank you.
Just next few slides, a little bit about immigration in general, families, the reason why we come here, for economic, political reasons, for survival, and of course, the tasks of immigrant families include survival, acculturation, establishing a new identity. Assimilation patterns and challenges include self-identification, cultural observances, ethnic diversity, benchmarks of assimilation, socioeconomic status, spatial concentration, intermarriage. One interesting thing about language proficiency, it's an interesting one though. Two things I learned. One is many Iranians don't speak Farsi, second generation. That's also true about Indians that come from southern part of India. We don't speak, many of our children don't speak the Indian languages. That does it affect, what most of the studies show, the language is important to establish an identity. What the studies show about Indians, the not learning language did not change their identity, Indo-American identity. It did not deter them to feel like Indo-Americans. But not speaking Farsi, and combined with the other political factors, does that put some sort of dent in Iranians having the Iranian American identity? Do they see themselves more as Americans with some sort of Iranian flavor? I don't know that part. That's something you guys know more about that. If you want to say something, feel free. The language, not speaking Farsi and does that affect the assimilation?
Yeah, it's true. It is true. This part is an absolute truth. Yes. Nima, you want to say something? Unmute yourself. Dr. Gamstani, keep Nima unmuted.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Now I'm mute again. Sorry for that. So yeah, that's true. I guess for maybe second generation and third generation. I guess maybe because the school system and everything is focused in other languages than Farsi. That's definitely a fact. However, there are some stuff that maybe we kind of passed through quickly through your previous slides that I would like to put some comments if that's fine. One of them, I guess that's the challenges for all the students that they come here to US on a visa on an F1 visa or maybe F2 visa. So some of the challenges that I can say on the behalf of the students is first, I would say we come here. The first challenge when you arrive here is going to be like finding a place to rent. Maybe it's not just for Iranian students. It's major for all the students, international students. You need a social security. You need a credit history. Sometimes you need a guarantor to find a place to rent, and it's hard. Even though that you come and then you apply for social security, you cannot easily rent a place. That happens to me as well. I went to New York, and my college was in New York City, and then it took me about 4 months until I was able to find a place to rent. And during that 4 months, I stayed with other students, other people. I moved to other locations, and I even lived with one of my old friends who lived about two hours away from my campus. Maybe that's a big challenge when you arrive here and then maybe you don't know anyone here. The second big one, I guess, especially for Iranian students, Iranian people as an immigrant, is homesickness. I guess that part starts from the first minute that you get on a plane, on a flight, in a Imam Khomeini airport in Iran. Exactly at that moment, that feeling, that emotional feeling starts. And that stays with you during the next couple of years. That's the main reason. Because, imagine that you're on the single entry visa. When you get to the US, you cannot exit until you get your green card, you get your advanced parole. So you have to stay here for another on average maybe 5 years, and that's a long time. And also same thing about your family, your parents. They cannot come here and visit you easily. They have to go to the neighbor countries, apply for a visa, go to the clearance process and other stuff. And then imagine that during the Trump, we have a travel ban that, most of the parents, they couldn't come or they couldn't get their visa to come and visit us. And that was a very challenging time for many students here as well. I guess I can say that the other, imagine after that you have to, the visa status and everything, that's a big challenge for students, not just Iranian. Imagine after that, you have to find a work, find a place just to be a sponsor for you, and then become a sponsorship, and then you can get your H-1B visa and then apply for a green card. That's a long process as well. And sometimes that doesn't happen because H-1B process is a lottery process. And then I have a friend, my roommate from New York. He is my close friend actually. He couldn't get his H-1 visa, and then he had to leave US. Right now, actually, he is in London. He lives in London because he couldn't extend his visa, unfortunately. Maybe the last challenge that actually you had during the slide that I have comments on is the financial challenges. I guess one of the issues right now that we are dealing with, of course, is the sanction on Iran, and transferring money. First of all, transferring money is not easy if you need support from your family. And also, imagine that when I came here, it was 10 years ago, and then I can't imagine that right now it's about 10 years after that. The value of our currency compared to dollar right now, it's much less. And then just imagine that how much more expensive everything is going to be right now for you if you want to bring your support and financial support from Iran. When you want to buy something, it happens to me, right? When you want to just buy a single stuff from grocery, you have to do the math in your mind that how much it's going to cost in your own currency, in your hometown currency, to buy something from groceries. That's not easy also. Yeah, these are maybe some main challenges.
Thank you. That's
that
great.
I can think of.
I'm glad. Just next slide. I want to even though this is studies about Indian and Pakistani families in Canada, I thought it might be helpful to understand Iranian culture as well. That is, even though Indians and Pakistani families in Canada accepted the changes of the pragmatic values, but they retained the core values. I thought that's a very important aspect of the second generation. The second is parents. This is interesting. Parents obtained children's cooperation by adopting in the middle course. I think I'm sure most of you do the same thing. Conflicts, confusion about dating and romantic love. We know about that. That's still true about Iranian families. I don't know, maybe less than Indian and Pakistani families. I don't know that part. Could be. Parents perceiving, this is important, the parents perceiving normal ambivalence as disrespect or rejection. It's important. All children are ambivalent. That's nothing to do with the disrespect. We need to recognize that part. The last one is also important. It's easy to see something as culture gap, even though it's really generation gap. No two generations think alike or feel like act alike. It's easy to say it's a cultural issue, not necessarily cultural, it's purely generational. This is a slide from Dr. Ian Canino and Jean Spurlock, the two famous child psychiatrists that promoted cultural aspects in child psychiatry. These are all different aspects of identity, not just about immigrant identity of anybody, particularly minorities. Ethnic socialization, ethnic identification, self-esteem regulation, bicultural competence, linguistic patterns, minority status as a source of stress. It's very important. Dealing with prejudices is crucial. Conflicts about Americanization in immigrants, effects of poverty, differences in values between parents and teachers, institutional racism, child rearing and discipline, attitudes about seeking help. All of them apply to all of us, Iranians, Indians, and Pakistanis, and Blacks, and so on. This is a quote from Grinberg and Grinberg. They are double immigrants, Spain to Cuba to Argentina. Their book on immigration is the classic. Anybody who is working with immigrants should read their book. It is a 5x8 book, only 100 pages long, but it's full of information, beautifully written. I have a couple of quotes from them. Fear of being swallowed by the new culture or of being torn apart by it. All of us have a little bit of it. It is only by having a good relation to internal objects, by accepting one's losses, and by working through the mourning process that a person can integrate the two countries, two time periods, and two social groups in a discriminating way. In so doing, the person recognizes, consolidates his sense of identity as someone who remains himself or herself despite changes and restructuring. I know two case examples. One is me, the other one is Dr. Alavi. The reason why we feel good is because we have internalization of our wonderful country and parents. I felt loved by my mom and dad and my culture, and easy to feel that I'm loved here by American culture and Americans, partly because of my own internalization of my upbringing and my objects back home. Agree with me, Dr. Alavi? Okay. This is a quote from Dr. Salman Akhtar. He divides the immigration process beautifully in his book, Immigration and Naturalization, from love or hate to ambivalence, from near or far to optimal distance, from yesterday to or tomorrow to today, from yours or mine to ours. We go through these phases to accept our immigration process. Again, his book on immigration is a classic book. We all should read it. It's a beautifully written and beautifully explained book. Um, this is another interesting. Soros Orozco, they're professors from Harvard, husband and wife. Their book of Children of Immigrants is another classic. Anybody who is working with children of immigrants should read their book. That is, children must construct identities that will enable them to thrive in profoundly different settings, such as homes, schools, the world of peers, the world of work. Immigrant children today may have breakfast conversation in Farsi, listen to by the way, this is, I didn't put Farsi, he put in there. Listen to African American rap with their peers on the way to schools, and learn about the New Deal from their social studies teacher in mainstream English. When there is too much role confusion, when cultural guides are inadequate, and when there is cultural dissonance and strife, an adolescent will find to develop flexible, adaptive sense of identity. It's another quote from Dr. Soros Orozco. He used the word social mirroring. I will say a little bit about this. It's important for us to understand, both for mostly second generation, more than first generation. It comes from Winnicott's idea, Donald Winnicott. When the child looks at mom's face, if mom is happy, child thinks because he's great. When mom is depressed, child blames himself for causing mother's depression, even though it's nothing to do with child. The child reads mom's face and internalizes what he sees in mom's face. Mm. And what we immigrants do is look at the white man's reaction, white woman's reaction, and value ourselves. As D.W. Du Bois said beautifully about the double consciousness, when he looks at the black person, looks at white's reaction on TV in person, they put their value on their face. If the white face doesn't look happy, he thinks because he's ugly and not good. It's a cultural, what happens in general when the Black African Americans are in their own community, they don't feel this way. When they look at the TV or when they're in the white community, they measure their value looking at the face of the white person or the white person's TV. This is very common with immigrants. That is, we look at the TVs, radios, and the white culture and value ourselves as we do with an infant valuing himself or herself at mom's face. This is a little bit, I think I'm going to skip some of these slides for the sake of time though. There are 4 types of self-identification: foreign national identity, a hyphenated American identity, a plain American identity without a hyphen, a pan-ethnic minority group identity. Maybe Nima, you want to say anything about how this applies to Iranians, second generation? Do they have a...
Dr. Gogineni, I'm sorry, Dr. Gogineni, are you really meaning second generation or 1.5 generation? Because, you know, people like Nima, they're not second generation. They actually is generation 1.
Actually, you're an immigrant, right, Nima? You're an immigrant.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's really first generation.
Yeah.
He's first generation. I'm really talking about you're the 1.5 our second generation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Nima, go ahead.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I myself, I try to kind of blend myself in in this new identity, but I consider myself as an Iranian still. not that
Okay,
much American,
right,
because
right,
I'm not
right.
familiar that much with American culture.
Yeah, because you're a first generation immigrant.
Yes, yes,
But I'm
correct.
talking about the second generation. Some of them do think they don't dismiss them being Iranian Americans. Some of them highlight the Iranian identity more than the American identity. And some of them put themselves with the rest of the minorities, or could be an Arab identity or a Muslim identity instead of an Iranian identity.
Mhm.
So that's what I mean.
Mhm.
So just, you don't know, think about it. Think about it though when you deal with them.
Mhm.
I don't know how important it is, but it can be.
Mhm.
This is an interesting slide. They deny their own identity, and then act out a little bit. The second or third bullets are important. The Korean American generation, they're targeted in LA. Afro Americans, they act like they're almost like white people. They identified themselves instead of realizing they're Korean Americans. Same thing about the third bullet, Kurdish gangs became aggressive with the Hispanics.
Mhm.
That I think that happens more often than not. This is an interesting, I'm going to just say a couple of words for the sake of time. This is an interesting slide for us to know the white people are not discriminating against just us. In 1920, there was so much open hatred for Catholics, Catholic immigrants, a lot more than there is more hatred towards other groups now. So we don't have monopoly of being discriminated. So Italians and Irish were discriminated a lot more actually in 1920s than we were in the recent years. It's important to recognize it's one of those things that happens. By the way, this is not unique to America, by the way. Actually, I read stories about how Indians were discriminating against African immigrants in New Delhi. And there is similar kind of discrimination in many other countries. Americans don't have a monopoly in racism. We're all racist in some level.
Mhm.
I'm going to skip this. It's a bit too difficult to explain this. What I'm trying to say is it's a complex race parenting identity in Iranian diaspora. Is a complex, complicated issue. It exists. This is an interesting slide. Like they compared Iranian women in Iran and American women in America. What they discovered in the study, Iranian women in middle class, upper middle class women in Iran, and the white Caucasian women in America, they have similar values. That is, the educated, upper middle, rich class Iranian woman and American woman looked for attractiveness, sexuality, status, resources, intelligence, and education. And women with higher self-rated intelligence prefer more intelligent and educated men. Iranian women desired 2.5 children, educated women. And sample was drawn from university settings in Tehran and may not necessarily reflect attitudes of all Iranian women. So again, it's one of the things, class education plays a role, both in Iran as well as in US, both Caucasians and Iranian women, maybe men too. It's important to realize the universality of some of these prejudices and preferences. Otherwise, it's easy to think externalize the problem. This is another study comparing Westerners and non-Western about thinness. What the third bullet says is interesting, though. Hijab is no longer a protective factor against eating pathology. I thought it was a cute slide, though. Even though people can see how heavy you are, how thin you are when you're under hijab, that did not stop women's perception about their weight and wanting to be thin. By the way, this is also true. Me and wife did a study in Indian culture. Same thing. Until marriage, Indian women's wanting to be thin is similar to American women wanting to be thin. It's universal. There's something about womanhood. It's easy to blame culture, but it's across the cultures this exists. As I said, Indian, Iranian, and as well as American women. There must be some sort of psychoanalytic social explanation more than just cultural explanation. This is a study about effects of immigration on healthcare status. Pre-migration stresses, language barriers, unemployment, lack of information about health services, social isolation, experience of discrimination, cultural, I can't see all the slide, as well as intimate partner violence can adversely affect well-being and mental health of Iranian immigrants. Immigrants report lack of social support in a new country, while Iranians have been observed as well as organized community in Sweden. It's an interesting slide there. The Swedish Iranian culture is different than American Iranian culture. It may have something to do with the Swedish people accepting Iranians are not having all the baggage the Americans have about Iranian culture with the 9/11 hostage crisis and all those things affecting Americans' version of the Iranians in America that affected Iranians in America. But that didn't apply to Swedes. A combination of immigration-related factors and general factors commonly identified as important to the mental health populations globally. Men versus women. Actually, I didn't add the second half of this slide. One study showed men have a higher level of cultural acceptance, but another study actually showed the other way around. Women accepted better than men some of the cultural aspects of the immigration. Depression and mood disorders, trauma-related disorders, ADHD. I have another slide to talk more about that. I will just skip that bullet here. Ethnic identity among second-generation Iranians in the United States. Iranian immigrants in developing a sense of ethnic identity and community is mixed. While they often express a strong desire for preservation of their cultural heritage, they show no significant resistance to assimilating forces to host societies. Is that bad, good or bad? But that's different. I think some cultures show a lot more resistances. I don't know whether it applies to other Islamic countries, including Pakistan. I don't know, though. I would think there's more. I think somehow Iranian culture has less resistance than some other immigrant cultures in resisting assimilation. 20 years of political hostility between the United States and Iran, and due to most Iranian immigrants dislike Iranian culture represented by the Islamic Republic government in Iran, second-generation Iranians have come to have a less clear perception of their ancestral land and its cultural dynamics. It's an important though. Less second generation Iranians have come to have less clear perception of their ancestral land and its cultural dynamics. I also read many of the Iranian groups are doing a lot of work like you guys do, but it's not making as much impact on the second generation about learning about the Iran and Iranian culture, Iranian heritage. I don't know that's true, but maybe you can tell me whether I'm true about this. Second generation Iranians have shown a strong interest in maintaining a sense of their ancestral roots and culture. However, such a desire is predicted by an Americanized understanding of Iranian culture and conditioned by the characteristics of the American multicultural society. That's an interesting bullet, though. Can anybody, one of you, say something about these last two bullets? Maybe all three of them. Maybe we can have a little bit dialogue.
Yeah, Dr. Gogineni, your number 220 years, it's actually 42 years, not 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah, that's 42 years. And Ms. Rohani, you want to say something? Unmute Ms. Rohani, please.
You can say it, Dr. Wenziger. Maybe you want to say something. Please, this is for everybody, though.
No, I know, but I know that Ms. Rohani was writing very
Okay,
good
okay, all right,
comments,
sure,
you know.
sure.
So I thought that maybe she would like to say something, you know. But what I want to say that, you know, all of these things depend upon the you know, family. If the family respects the original culture, and if they actually you know, have the celebrate all the Iranian, you know, celebrations and respect their culture, their children also learn to do that, you know. Second generation Iranians most likely do not respect the culture as much as the 1.5 generation, you know, Iranians, because second generations, you know, there's one American father or an American mother, you know, and they, you know, it depends, you know, where the mother is from. If the mother is from America, most probably they would be geared towards their celebration, their culture. And if the mother is Iranian, most probably they would actually be, you know, geared towards the Iranian culture. So it all depends upon, you know, the parents, you know, or the grandparents, you know, and the family. I mean, the setting of the family. So are you finished with your speech, Dr. Gogineni?
Okay.
Because there are a lot of questions, you know.
Okay, let me just run through quickly then.
Yeah, so if you finish,
ethnic
then we will start
identity,
with.
parents claim they're genuine Iranians. Okay, what it says is each generation has a different ethnic identity. The immigrants, they are almost 100% Iranians. The second generation kind of they're negotiating, compromising. And the third generation, they become more Americanized. That's true about all immigrants, though. But does it happen more to Asian immigrants, Iranian immigrants? Probably. Fragmented ethnic identity, second generation, social class boundaries, important. Heritage, continued relations between Iran and the United States, fluidity of ethnic identities. I just have a slide here. This is a mixed Iranian and mixed race. I thought it's important for us to think about it. I'm not going to say any more for the sake of time. It's an interesting aspect in Indian communities, all immigrant communities. When they marry, Mississippi Masala, I don't know whether you have seen the movie, Indian movie. It's a great movie. And I'm going to skip this one. This is an interesting slide. Feelings of isolation and loneliness in upper middle class, educated class, failure to blend into society at large. These are negative outcomes of not having a good identity, self-esteem dysregulation, depression, suicide, academic difficulties. These are the children's problems in America because of the culture. This is the study done in Iran with Iranian adolescents: conduct problems, emotional problems, hyperactivity, peer problems, social problems. Girls have more emotional problems than conduct problems. Psychoeducation, grief work, culture-specific strategies, multidirectional partiality. Conclusions: most children of immigrants question who am I. I'd skip this one though. I'll do a little bit. The combination of high levels of education and top white-collar occupations account for generally successful economic adaptation of Iranian immigrants and their children. This success, however, is qualified by prejudice and discrimination Iranians continue to face in the United States. This is mostly provoked by anti-American pronouncements of Iranian regime, Middle Eastern terroristic acts rather than by Iranian Americans themselves. Iranian Americans have become more organized and have established several organizations to continue educational economic success of Iranian Americans. The second generation is still young, given the extent of their achievements. Even at the beginning of their careers, one can only expect an upward trajectory for this generation. And that's it.
Thank you. Oh, you wrote in Farsi. Thank you. Thank you so much. Can you please unshare?
Oh, sure.